I have seen snippets from this. Live chat replay was turned off for this video. Oh, I wonder why. This is gonna be bad. Almost 2 hours. Oh god. Thank God I got me more cake.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest developer update stream. Today we're going to be getting into everything coming with Season 9, Sins of the Harajam in Diablo 4. My name is Marcus Kretz. I'm a community manager here at Blizzard Entertainment. Adam Fletcher will not be in today, although I can assure you he is 14 feet to my left, crushing Celsius at an alarming rate. We got a great show for you today. We will be jumping into everything coming with Season 9. We've got a familiar cast of faces here today. We've got some lovely people. Today I'm joined by Miss Aislinn Hall. Aislinn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Let me make it a little more.
What you do on the Diablo team?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, I'm Aislinn. I am a systems designer working on the final design team. Typically, I work on seasons.
Hi, I'm Charles Dunn. I'm a class designer working on the final design team. Also working on seasonal updates for all the class design stuff.
Hell yeah. And coming in hot all the way from downtown Albany, New York, Mr. Dan Tangway, welcome back to the stream.
Hey everybody. Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
Why can't they fix the audio? Even I'm better in doing the audio. Why can't they take half an hour before this to fix the audio? Why? They are a multi-million-dollar company. Why can't they fix the audio? Because his audio is way louder than the other guys' audio. This is giving me a headache. We are in a couple seconds and I'm already annoyed.
So I'm Dan Tangway. I am the design director for Live Surfaces.
Nice. Things aren't too hot in Albany these days, Dan?
It's cooling down. There was a heat wave earlier. Electricity went out. No AC. No fun.
Well, AC's back. We're good to go.
I live in Germany. No AC here at all.
We're good to party.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And what better to party with than, very exciting to say, we've got a Twitch drop this stream. So if you have Twitch drops enabled on your account and you're watching on Twitch, you'll be able to snag the Lacunai's Pupil two-handed Sork staff. And the really exciting part about this staff is that it's got...
Oh please, you're Diablo 4. I will not do that for you. I did that for Path of Exile, but will not do it for you. Well, the other reason is that I don't play Diablo 4. For very obvious reasons.
A nice crystal kitty on the end, so if you're a big cat fan like myself, you can watch this
course,
stream or any other eligible stream in the Diablo 4 category for 30 minutes, and you'll be able to claim that. We do have some FAQs for Twitch drops on our blog that announce the stream, so if you're having any issues, go and check it out. And no, you cannot watch the stream muted. You have to have us unmuted and listen to our beautiful voices to collect that stuff.
Let's go back. That thing looks not good. The cat, it doesn't look like it doesn't belongs to the staff. What is this design? Why does the cat look so out of place? This looks like a bad Photoshop.
Muted, you have to have us unmuted and listen to our beautiful voices to collect that stuff. So enjoy. To give you a little overview of the stream, it's been a while since we chatted since the Season 9 PTR. We're going to give you a bit of a refresher on the overview. What does Sins of the Harajam bring? We're going to go through some class balance updates, some PTR changes, and then we're going to get into some Q&A towards the end of the stream. And so in terms of what questions we're kind of looking for the Q&A section, you know, something like what are the goals of seasonal class updates is a great question. Anything that's really speaking broadly to like the why of how we do things. You know, if you want the nitty-gritty changes, you can go check it out in the patch notes. But we're looking for, you know, nice and broad questions. I asked Dan what kind of question he might want to hear from chat, and he said, you know, do they prefer affix or affix? So, you know, some other things to chew on for that. But yeah, stick around towards the end of the stream. The community team will be grabbing your questions, and we'll look forward to answering.
By the way, guys, if the audio is kind of fucked here, I try my best, but when it comes to audio, Blizzard seems to be more fucked than I am. How? How is this possible? How is this possible that this is supposed to be a professional thing, right? But how don't they get the audio correct? Why is this? Why? Why? Hire some. If you can't get it right with the people you have, fire someone and get a new person. This is insane.
Who knows?
Absolutely.
So yeah, but without further ado,
But is his mic not working or hers or what is going on? To be at this point, I think they would be better off having a mic standing on a table here, just for all three of them.
This is the Haradrim. They've been sinning. How have they sinned? We're going to find out. Dan Tangway is going to walk us through everything coming with the season and tell us what the Haradrim have been up to and why are we dealing with their past choices.
Yeah, let's do that. So, graphic here, and this graphic be pretty familiar to a lot of you, but that's going to cover all of what Season 9 contains, and it is a lot. So, Season 9, Sins of the Haradrim. First up, you're going to get a new quest line, new seasonal quest line.
Really? Why? I mean, in a new Path of Exile Lake, we have a new quest line for story, yes, but as far as I know, that is not just for this league, because why would it be? It's story for endgame. More endgame stuff. Why is this quest line only for this? Why? Just give more content.
I'm going to go over a little bit about the premise behind that after I get through this massive list of things. Next up, seasonal content. So,
Nightmare dungeons. Explore new and refreshed gameplay. Oh, great. Heroic strong rooms. What? Escalating nightmares. Nightmare dungeon affixes. Face Astaroth. Face him head on in the seasonal quest line. And let me guess, we will never see him again. New loot, okay, that hopefully is not only for the season. Horadric jewels, okay. New relic rewards, yeah. This doesn't look good. This looks like a mediocre PoE 1 league. Yeah, they don't have, you know, enough planned out for the league, and then they just, get a little bit of things out.
as you saw in the PTR, we've got Herodric Spellcraft and we've got Herodric Jewels. Both of those systems are pretty deep, and I'm going to kick it over to Aislinn after I'm done to chat through those. We also have a new season journey pet named Dante. He's a good dog, but he certainly doesn't look good. But he'll be available, as will new reliquary rewards, which
Guys, I will not edit this video. I will leave the audio. I mean, I try to compensate in OBS for their audio shit, right? But their audio is so bad that there is not much that I can do. But I want you guys to hear how bad the audio of them is, because that very clearly shows that they don't care. They don't care. Not about the players, not about the viewers. It's very obvious.
which I feel are pretty self-explanatory. But then we're really excited to bring to you some permanent updates to the game as well. This is something we've heard a lot of feedback from y'all on, and we want to make sure that we were delivering it moving forward. And that's making sure that whenever we make updates to major systems, that those updates appear in both the seasonal and the Eternal Realms. Sometimes.
Well, duh. I mean, why do you make the updates if you don't get them to the standard league? I mean, why? Why make? Are you stupid? Seriously? Are you stupid? Why don't you put changes that are good from the seasonal into the standard league? Why? Why wouldn't you?
We'll call this evergreen, but at any rate, a lot of updates to Nightmare Dungeons that apply to both realms. We're going to talk about.
Okay, so immediately, okay, yeah, because I guess there's a lot of people playing this game that don't play the seasons. Okay, yeah, that don't want to play new characters. Okay, this is understandable. A different audience than Path of Exile.
A bit about Herodric Strong Rooms. We're going to talk a bit about escalating nightmares and some new Nightmare Dungeon affixes as well. And of course, we will talk about the Astaroth boss battle. Now, finally, we've got a lot of new loot and class updates that are coming to Season 9. That's something that Charles is much better suited to cover than I am. So we'll kick it over to him, and we'll probably finish up with some quality of life updates. So let's jump into story. Let's see. I think we got a graphic. Yes, we're going to start with Astaroth.
Why does this look so cheap? This looks cheap. Was this made with AI? Or are the artists just... this looks cheap? Why does it look so cheap? This is stupid.
So, for those of you who remember, Astaroth is somebody we have faced down before in Diablo 4, but he's got a bit of a backstory that's pretty important to Season 9. So Astaroth is the Charred Duke. He's the guardian of the Cathedral of Hatred. He serves Mephisto. Somehow, not sure entirely how, but somehow he escapes hell, and he starts laying waste, burning down Skosglen. Wants to make it as his own private hell. Now, clearly, you know, the Druids of Skosglen will not put up for that. And so they partner up with a Herodric mage named Donan, which we will see in our next slide here. Now, Donan, here he is with those Herodric mages, or rather...
This looks better. This looks like it's hand-drawn. So that looks way better. But it's... this looks kind of not... the image in the image looks out of place. Do you feel me here? I think this looks completely out of place. This looks like a photo. You know, these poses and all looks like would be... these are photos and not a painting.
With those druids, he's the mage. They band together and ultimately defeat Astaroth. Now, well, sort of, because much as what happens with powerful demons, Donan decides to trap Astaroth in a soul stone and buries that soul stone deep inside the earth. And as we all know, soul stones are ticking time bombs.
Of course they are.
So by the start of Diablo 4, that is the situation we're looking at. Needless to say, Astaroth escapes. We defeat Astaroth as the Wanderer. Donan suffers some pretty tragic losses, including his life. And so in Season 9, this is our starting point, and there's something else going on. Something else is stirring in Skosglen, and it's up to us to discover what's going on. So we're...
Man, the difference between this and the leak reveals of Path of Exile that GGV does. They are two completely new worlds. Why haven't we seen any gameplay so far? Why? Show gameplay. Oh, this is the new boss, Lucia. Why? Why? Why don't you show us things? Why are you telling?
Going to partner up with Briona. I believe we've got a photo image of Briona next. Now, Briona is a druid. She's got some history with Donan. She doesn't particularly like him. And so you'll learn more about why that is as you're traveling with her. And your first stop on your travels is up to Eldheim Keep, where there's been a lot of demon activity and you need to save some villagers. And at Eldheim Keep, you're going to make some pretty important discoveries for this season.
Why don't you show the keep? Why don't you show the keep? Show it right now, in game. What is this style of presentation? Why is this? This is dumb.
I think we have some footage of that. So up
Thanks.
in Eldheim Keep, you're going to be entering the keep. And on the floor, where there's some demons fighting over it, you're going to see what is known as a Herodric Wayfinder. And this Herodric Wayfinder.
Why is everything gray and brown? That's one thing that I remember Asmongold complaining about when Diablo 4 first came out. Everything is gray and brown.
Is pretty special. It's going to help you figure out where there are Herodric secrets buried deep within Nightmare Dungeons. And it's going to tug you in those directions and provide you clues and hints. So we'll see a little bit of that in action right now. Now, as you get closer,
Is anyone intrigued at this point? Because I am bored. This looks boring. This looks totally boring. How do you manage to make your leak reveal look boring? This is insane. It's insane how incompetent this is. I think this is incompetence.
a Herodric totem is going to reveal itself, a gateway. And upon clicking it, you've got to fight a couple of enemies that are guarding it. But ultimately, you're going to discover that it opens a portal to an unknown part of this particular dungeon.
So this object kind of functions like a strongbox by spawning monsters and then giving you something. Here, revealing something on the map. Okay. Yeah.
So once we're defeating these enemies, we'll see the portal, and then we're going to jump right through.
But number one, why do you need to fight those monsters to just enter the portal? Number two, why isn't just a portal there? Number three, why do we need to interact with the thing in the first place to open the portal? Or why don't you just have the thing there interact with it and portal opens? Or why is there not just a portal? You know? The thing is, the fighting the monsters didn't even look... It didn't even look fun. At all. This is boring gameplay.
And so now we're inside what is known as a Herodric Strong Room. Now, first up, you're going to learn a little bit of the Herodric Strong Room mechanics. We've got a pillar here, and this pillar is going to help you gain more of what is known as attunement. And attunement is the score, essentially, for the Strong Room. And as you gather more, it's going to boost your rewards. But before,
Isn't this like ultimatum in Path of Exile? I think it is.
you get into the actual strong room, you've got to choose what kind of test you want to take. And in fact, you can choose up to 3 tests. These tests are going to modify the strong room in some way, whether boosting attunement or giving you swiftness or varying up how the shrines behave in the strong room. So we're going to pick 3 here, and that will modify our run coming up. So we're going to jump in, and now we've got a timer in which to kill as many enemies as we can to prove our might to the Haradrim.
Okay.
And so you see we're playing around that pillar again. It flashed, which means we got the bonus. And now any of the enemies we kill at this point will give us additional attunement. And you notice on the side, the UI, we've got a great new UI here now. There are 6 levels of attunement that you can achieve, and each of those increases the amount of rewards that you get at the end.
Why only 6? Why is there only 6? Simple question, why is there 6? Why is that the number? Why not 5? Why not 4? Why not 10? Why is it only 6? Why is it 6?
So obviously you're trying to not only kill as many enemies as possible, but maximize that attunement through clever use of those pillars we mentioned before, shrines.
Is it me, or does the game look like mush? Like the effects look like they have a layer of I don't know how to say it. Compared to Path of Exile 1 or 2, this looks mushy. Like I'm looking through a dirty window. That's how this looks like. Like looking through a dirty window. It looks unclear and mushy. And of course it's all gray and brown. And a little bit of red. And I can't really see what's going on.
The tests you selected at the beginning and so forth. Now, at the end, you're going to fight a boss. In this case, we're fighting.
And of course the fighting looks just boring.
The Pyroclast. And that's just a final skill check before we spawned the Grand Haradric Cache. The Grand Haradric Cache has a lot of cool legendaries, and it also has a buff on it that will encourage you to finish the rest of that Nightmare Dungeon. But also importantly for our conversation, it's going to have something else. And that something else is an escalation sigil, which you'll see in your inventory here.
Zenith Escalation Sigil. Brave a series of Brave a series of dungeons, each one deadlier than the last, in search of Astaroth's lair. What? Up to Sight Mine, Dark Omen. Those are the affixes. Okay, but what do they do? Can I just hold Alt and see what they're doing? I don't know. Doesn't look like it.
Now, this escalation sigil is important because this is the other big gameplay system that we've introduced permanently for Season 9. So, let's talk about
Permanently for Season 9. What is he saying? What was that sentence?
the escalation sigil for a bit. Now, this is going to spawn a series of dungeons. And at the end of that series of dungeons will be a boss if you're in the Torment tiers. So let's talk a little bit about the affixes because we've done a lot of work on those. You see our starting affixes here. You get 1 positive and 1 negative. Now the positive one is Equipment Delve. This is going to give you better loot drops as you go through. Also got Hunters. Hunters is a new affix, probably a little refurbished. I forget what it was called before, but this increases the monster speed of traversal and of attack against you. So that's not going to be too fun. Now, when you get to the end of that dungeon, because I believe in you, you guys can.
So why not just have monsters have increased movement speed, monsters have increased attack speed, cast speed? Why can't you just, you know, write them down? Why do you have a name yet where you have to know what it means? Because I I never played the game. I have no idea what that means. Why? Just why?
Get to the end of that dungeon. In addition to Equipment Delve and Hunters, you're going to get Forgotten Wisdom and Waller Elites. Now, Waller Elites we all know and probably hate. I don't like them that much. Forgotten Wisdom is actually going to spawn XP wells around the dungeons, so you get an extra boost of XP as you're going through the dungeon and complete your runs. So
Why can't that just be, you know, in general? And why do I have to click the wells to have increased experience? Why isn't that just an FX? Why isn't that an FX? Just make it an FX to the dungeon itself, so I don't have to click something just to click it. Why? Why? Any explanation? No? Oh, good.
let's see the escalating nightmares in all their glory. So this is a new run here. This one actually, we've got Herodric Bestiary, which is going to boost the amount of rep that you get for this particular run. And it's also got Khazra Hordes. Now, Khazra Hordes is actually modifying the enemies in this case. There's a lot more Khazra. They've taken this up as their home, and they're a lot more powerful in this dungeon. And so you, of course, defeat the Khazra Abomination at the end. And note that we've spawned a portal. So you don't need to go back to town. You don't need to go into your inventory to continue to run. You can just continue it from right here. And when you click on it, you see what you're going to get next.
Okay, that's the first good thing I see in this presentation. This I like.
So we're going to jump right in and load up the next dungeon here. And as we jump in, we're going to find, you know, if we were reading the thing before, that there's actually a guaranteed strong room in this dungeon. So that's pretty cool. And that's going to give us a chance to actually double dip on rewards. And so you're.
Now I have an idea for Path of Exile. 1 or 2 or both. Why, you know, in Kalgur, where we can send NPCs into maps, why can't we have a mechanic like that, but for us, the players, where we choose, I don't know, 10 maps that we want to run in a row and put it in, and after we finish a map, a portal opens and we can directly go into the next one. That would be fun. That would be nice. That would be fast.
Going to find a lot of interesting combinations to really make these escalation sigils as efficient as possible. But ultimately, you get through your run, and you're going to be able to fight Astaroth, especially since we're in Torment 3. So, here is the clip of the Astaroth.
To be fair, I like the model of the boss. It looks nice.
Fight. Now, when we were looking at Astaroth, we
was
thought
that
to
movement?
ourselves, well, we're having a rematch. Obviously can't do the same fight, but since it is a rematch, we want to include elements of the previous fight.
Of course.
And so, you know, the fight starts with Astaroth astride his mount, and all of this part of the fight should be pretty familiar to you at this point. But then we want to start changing it up, and what better way to really create the feeling of a rematch is now
Is
that
he
you
even
get to
doing
fight,
anything to the boss?
Astaroth one.
Because to me, it doesn't look like he's doing anything to the boss. When he stands there and is casting, and the lightning comes down but doesn't even hit the enemy, it doesn't look like he's doing anything to the boss.
But You know, even though the amalgam is down, he's not out this time. And so the amalgam is sitting in a pool regenerating, creating a hazard that you need to manage, while you also need to fight Astroth. Of course,
Yeah, but the hazard isn't moving, so it's easy.
you can cheat and walk through the pool, but you can't. And so that's how the phases will escalate for Astroth. And within the escalation sigil version of Astroth, you even get new affixes and things like that that modify the fight even further. So we really tried to make this kind of a unique twist on a boss fight, something that you haven't seen before. And with that, I think I am done covering the Nightmare Dungeon section of this update. So I'm going to kick it over to Aislinn, and Aislinn is going to go pretty deep into spellcraft and jewels.
Yeah.
So far, I'm absolutely not impressed by anything I have seen. Like, this doesn't look like something I would want to play at all. It looks boring. It's boring. It's super slow. I mean, Path of Exile 2 is slow, but it's not boring because you actually have to really fight. But this is boring. I'm actually getting annoyed here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dan. And I'm so excited to go into those Nightmare Dungeons, those strong rooms, and especially the escalating sigil.
I don't believe for a moment that she plays the game. Why? Because I believe most of the people on the team don't play the game. That's why the game is like the way it is.
Dungeons, because it's going to be a freaking huge burst of rewards. It's going to be great. It's going to be hard, too. Those Waller elites are going to be a pain.
Yeah, especially when the affix stack up run over run throughout the escalating nightmares. It's going to be quite intense by the end.
It can get very intense.
That boss fight will be crazy.
Intense. So yeah, now these are going to present their own sets of challenges. So of course, we need to utilize the Horadrim's power in order to overcome those challenges. So with Season 9, we have Horadric's Spellcraft. So there's a lot of different components to Horadric's Spellcraft. So we're going to go over a quick overview and then dive a little deeper into how exactly it works. There are 3 different things that comprise the entirety of your Horadric spell. You're going to be
I wonder how deep this goes. Personally, I think not very. And I make this judgment based on everything that team has developed so far.
crafting a Horadric spell in Season 9. You're going to need a catalyst. The catalyst is effectively the core of the spell. It tells the spell that it's going to be a celestial storm of stars, or it's going to be a beam of arcane energy that disintegrates your foes. And then secondarily, that catalyst needs to have a damage type. So you need to infuse it with one of 5 different elemental damage types. These can be fire, lightning, frost, and poison, and I'm not going to remember the last one. And yeah, so that determines the elemental damage type of the spell, and it also gives it some nifty extra effects too. And then finally, there's Arcana, which are just like extra bits and baubles you can add to go even further into customization. So like you can probably imagine, this is the build your own spell kind of power.
This kind of sounds nice. And it basically is what we have in Path of Exile 1 and 2. I mean, if I take a fireball and, make it fire 3 instead of 1 fireball, and now they even come back after they travel a certain distance. That's completely new behavior. Or they explode when they hit an enemy and do something. Whatever it is, they do. That's different behavior. So basically they have the same. They have kind of a dumbed down version of the Path of Exile skill creation. But it's a 3-step instead of up to 6.
And Each one has
Or even more, depending on if your skill gets use out of unique items.
a ton of unique utility as well. You're going to be able to disable various enemies' elite affixes. You're going to be able to garner powerful effects for your own build, like vulnerable or crowd control. There's tons of stuff you can do with it. So without further ado,
Well,
let's jump into how exactly that works and how you'll be slotting it. So on the left side here, we have Celestial Surge. That is the tooltip for one of the 5 catalysts that you can actually equip. It is the one that causes a
Why is every piece of art I see from Diablo 4 looking like it's washed out?
star storm to fall on enemies. On the right-hand side, we have the Smoldering Ember, which is an infusion. So this will make Celestial Surge a fire version of the catalyst. So you will need to slot Celestial Surge, and you're going to have to assign it to one of the skills on your hotbar. So in the middle section, and we'll have a video to kind of show this, but basically you assign Celestial Surge to one of your own skills, and when you use that skill, it invokes Celestial Surge with the Smoldering Ember infusion applied to it.
My question here is just something logistical about this. You know, I mean, this is live. Number one, why do they have something like this live? Why didn't they have prepared a video that shows how this works? They could have done this 2 weeks ago, or 3, or 4, or 5. Just show how to create a new spell in a video. Just make a video out of it and have it play at this part. Then that's better than you fumbling through the explanation, like I fumbled through this video. But that would need professionalism, and to be quite fair, I think they lack a lot of that.
So let's take a look at what that actually looks like. So here we are, kind of tinkering with our Heraldric Spellcraft in the UI. We're going to equip Celestial Surge, and we're going to assign it to our rightmost skill, which in this case is Lightning Storm, I believe. So whenever we cast Lightning Storm and Celestial Surge is off cooldown, we are going to cast Celestial Surge in addition to channeling Lightning Storm. Now, we can't use Celestial Surge, like I said, unless we have an infusion equipped. So we are also additionally going to equip Smoldering Ember and make that Celestial Surge a fire version of itself. And Dan, luckily for you, this makes it so it destroys Waller Elites as well. So for anyone else out there that also dislikes Waller Elites, this will cause Celestial Surge to break those walls down, which is pretty great. It will also turn off Chilling Winds as well. So yeah, now we have a functional spell. So let's go in. We're casting Lightning Storm, and we also see these stars falling. Not a very fun time for them, but a pretty great time for us.
So it's a cast on, like we have seen in Path of Exile 2. Okay, well, also 1, but they work differently. But this works like the cast on in Path of Exile 2. At least it seems like that. And yeah, I mean, that's not bad at all, like, you know, but I'm like, you know,
everyone
it's
explodes
fine.
and we have a good day.
My main problem here again is that the game looks like trash.
Awesome. Now, there is a third component to Heraldric spells. It is called Arcana. So with Arcana, you don't need Arcana equipped for your Heraldric Spellcraft to function, but it gives it a bunch of awesome extra effects. So we have 3 examples here. I'll go over them just really quickly. We have the Sapping Crux. It causes your Catalyst to also apply Vulnerable for a pretty substantial amount of time, so you can effectively solve Vulnerable through this system. We have Reactive Ooze, which causes you to generate a pretty substantial amount of your resource every second for the next 10 seconds, so you can potentially solve your resource through that. And then we also have Sharpening Gizmo, which will blast people for quite a bit of physical damage and increase the lucky hit chance of your Catalyst. Spoiler, your Catalyst has a lucky hit chance, which can be really, really useful. Now, we also have some fancier Arcana. These examples are Magic and Rare Arcana, but the Nightmare Orb is legendary. So Legendary Arcana is a bit different in that each of
Of course, they have all kinds of ranks. Of course, they have. I mean, are we even surprised at this point?
their effects differ based on which catalyst you apply them to. So these two tooltips might look the same at first glance, but they're actually for two different catalysts in the game. The left-hand side one is specifically for propulsion. So it causes propulsion to additionally fear enemies, and while they're feared, they periodically explode, which we will also check out.
Wait, what?
Propulsion catalysts in the game. The left-hand side one is specifically for propulsion. So it causes
So it's for a specific, I guess, skill. Okay. I mean, PoE 1, not all super gems work with all skills, right? But yeah.
Causes propulsion to additionally fear enemies, and while they're feared, they periodically explode, which we will also check out. It sounds very scary, to be honest. And then on the right-hand side one, we have the disintegrate version, which causes them to take way more damage while they're feared from the actual catalyst effect, which is pretty great.
Okay.
So let's take a look at what this looks like in action. So we have a Spiritborn here who has the Nightmare Orb equipped to propulsion. Boom, propulsion explodes everywhere. They are all freaking out, they're feared, and they're exploding even more. And to be honest, I would also probably be feared if I was constantly exploding. So that makes sense.
This is
And
so
that
dumb.
is the quick and dirty overview of the Heraldric Spellcraft system. There's a ton to experiment with in this system. Can't wait for you guys to dig into it. There's so many different combinatorics, so many different possibilities. So go wild,
Is
go
there though?
crazy, try everything. It's a blast.
Yeah, I really love how you can customize it, not only in like the effect of the spell, but also like how you use it, right? They do have cooldowns, but then you can assign it to any one of the skills on your hotbar. So if you just like want to save it for a specific utility moment, right? You've customized it in such a way that, hey, it solves those Waller affixes, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you want to use it for. You can make sure it's assigned to a cooldown that you're going to save for that right moment. Or if you're just trying to really optimize its damage output and its DPS, you just put it on your basic or core skill that you know it's going to come up very often. And you don't need to really think too hard about it. It's just going to trigger when it triggers.
Yep.
It's true. Like the crazy amount of combinations that come from the system. Like I know I said on the PTR stream, and I feel like the people who have played the PTR will be advantaged now because I feel like this is something that the patch notes just can't do justice. It's going to be
Yeah.
very hard to read through that and get a good example of how you can theory craft and build craft through these. So
Yes,
it's
that's
really
so.
something you're going to need to jump into the game, get your hands on, and then really start to tinker with because there are so many possibilities. So
Yeah.
if you have played the PTR and you know these systems, then you've already got that advantage of knowing how intricate these systems are. So.
It's true, it's true. And there's not just that. You know, you thought that was enough Heraldric magic. There's more.
Throw
There's-
another layer on
Well,
it.
hopefully, we haven't seen anything so far. So far, this is a nothing burger.
Yes, there's also Heraldric Jewels. So Heraldric Jewels are powerful gems that you can use to augment your Heraldric spellcraft and your character's build even further. So when you go into these strong rooms, once you're in Torment difficulty, whenever you complete one, you're going to find a Heraldric Tome. And this is knowledge that the Heraldrim have stored away to craft these really powerful, unique Heraldric Jewels. Once you find the tome and you use it, you can go to a crafting station and then with gem fragments and the seasonal currency, craft Heraldric Jewels. They're crafted with Heraldric Vials and gem fragments. It's not as many gem fragments as it was to craft occult gems, so it's not quite as a massive grind as it was before. And they're specifically socketed into amulets and rings. So you have 3 sockets that are specifically designated for this, which means that you can have up to 3 Heraldric Jewels. And here
That's not a lot. Like, that's absolutely not a lot.
we have an example of a Heraldric Jewel. You know, it gives you some good stuff, core stat, max life, and you're going to be hunted in Sanctuary's darkest places. Well, that doesn't sound great.
I don't think you need to worry about that, no.
Yeah. No,
Shouldn't be
that's-
anything. I'm sure that's just flavor text, right? That's all.
Oh,
that is.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Anyways, yeah, so let's talk about
Quick,
the how
try
you
to be
craft
funny.
Heraldric Jewels with a little short video to show us what that looks like. So we have the Heraldric Lapidary here, which is where you're going to go to actually craft the jewels. We're going to navigate to the craft jewels section. We have them neatly organized among different categories to help you just, sift through it all pretty easily. And we have
Thank
quite a few
God.
of these. I think there's I want to say 16 in total. There's 16 Heraldric jewels. So whenever you
16? That's not a lot. But then I'm coming from Path of Exile, so that this might be a lot for Diablo 4 players. But yeah, everything I've heard about the skill trees in the Diablo 4 is like that. They basically don't exist. That's fundamentally is there basically are no skill trees. They are just twigs, skill twigs. So you maybe only need 16 because there are 16 builds you can have. That that might be it. I don't know if it's true, but I can't believe that.
go into a strong room, you're going to find more tomes, which is going to let you craft more, and then yada yada. So here with our wonderful Stalvar, the Awakened Arbiter, we want to craft an idol from below. So we need 15,000 of 3 different gem fragments, and then 3,000 of the seasonal currency, and voila, we have our idol from below, which is fine because there's nothing wrong with this and nothing bad is going to happen from this gem at all, so it's no problem. You'll also notice that it gives you bonus armor and resistances, so you're not actually missing out on any of the bonuses you would typically get to your defense from normal gems being socketed in those slots.
Thank God they fixed the resistances, because when the game came out, I know that they didn't work. What a surprise.
But yeah, so wait, what's this? It sounds like the idol from below is actually
I'm hearing
not
that's
great.
not actually just Slayer text. It
What?
might be functional.
Oh my god. Oh no. Okay, so when you have the idol from below equipped, sometimes mummies will spawn. They're the jewel guardians that are guarding this jewel, and they will attack you, and they can be very scary. So be very careful if you decide to equip this jewel, especially if you're playing hardcore. My goodness, please don't equip this jewel if you're playing hardcore or expect to die.
Yeah, they don't just spawn when you're alone in an empty room. Sometimes you're in the midst of an already big pack or a boss fight even,
Yes.
and these guys will come out trying to get their jewel back from you.
Yep, it's pretty spooky. But you can do some very clever things with these guys.
This is kind of, I mean, I wouldn't call this bad design, like at all. I would call this a gimmick. Now, in Path of Exile, you would have some way to deal with this, to make it maybe even useful for you. I don't know, in some way.
Sometimes it's actually really good to have extra bodies to be able to hit for like whatever skills or triggers you have, which is pretty neat. So yeah, let's move on to our final section here for the overview, which is PTR learnings. So we learned so much from PTR. We can't talk about every single thing because it's a tremendous list.
It is.
But we do have some highlights we wanted to talk to you guys about. So first of all, going over Heraldric Spellcraft. So we have made it so all of the deactivation effects that you get from infusions and various things, 3 seconds longer. So when you do actually deactivate an enemy affix like Waller or Chilling Winds, etc., it's going to last 8 seconds, up from 5. This is because we want to make sure that it feels as punchy as possible. When you do get that deactivation, you have a good amount of time to take them out and count.
Then why not 10? Why not 10? That would be punchy, whatever they are actually talking about, because I have no idea. But why not 10?
Counterattack them. Secondly, we want to talk about the change of Siphoning Gizmo to Sharpened Gizmo. So we found that Sharpened Gizmo was challenging for us in the sense that we want to maintain the competitive integrity of the game. That's really important for us. And Sharpened Gizmo was
Siphoning Gizmo. Siphoning Gizmo was on the PTR.
Yes, sorry.
Was problematic in a variety of ways.
Yes, it was problematic in a variety of ways. And we also saw.
What does problematic mean? Does that mean it was fun to use? Because you are Blizzard and I know Blizzard hates fun. I know it because I've played World of Warcraft.
The sharpened gizmo, which is the new one, has an opportunity for a more physical focused arcana, because we knew that that was kind of missing from the PTR, and we heard a lot of feedback about that. The next thing I want to talk about is the propulsion teleport change. So this effect caused you to be able to teleport effectively infinitely in a lot of builds. And it was transformative, and so transformative to the point that it was actually stomping on build identity in.
I hate this shit. What do you mean build identity? So I have to be slow because that's the identity of my character's class? Jesus Christ. This is stupid. Just let people have fun.
Many cases. And we really want you to experience the full breadth of what different characters can offer in Diablo 4.
And that after you said you had to, change the thing because it changed too much what the class fantasy is. What are we talking about here? Are they high? I wish I would be high. Then I wouldn't have to think about this stuff. If I can be fast with this skill modification thingy, whatever it is, then let me be fast.
We don't want it to all be condensed down to like one thing, right?
Yeah, when you're playing a different class and a different build, you want your gameplay to feel meaningfully different. And these, the Heraldric Spellcraft here is kind of a complement on top of what you're already doing. It's a unique utility. It's an interesting wrinkle to your build.
Yes.
And on the PTR, we found that this particular teleport propulsion interaction was basically eclipsing everything else.
Yep.
And every single build, if you just like looked at a clip of different people playing different classes, it looked identical.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly the kind of gameplay that we think is healthy for Diablo 4.
Yeah, we want to make sure every build has a different silhouette and feels very different and textured. So that's really important to us.
Then why don't you let the people zoom? They're directly contradicting themselves, aren't they? I mean, I'm hearing that right, correct? I mean, let me know if I'm wrong here, but I think they're contradicting themselves.
Another thing I want to talk about is that Disintegrate has a much wider area now. So before it was kind of a tiny little beam between you and the Disintegrate thing, but now it's much bigger. So you should be able to disintegrate many more enemies with it, which is great. And then beyond that, there are tons of miscellaneous changes to Heraldric Spellcraft. So go read the patch notes after this and check it all out.
Yeah, if you've never read the patch notes before, and especially in the blog as well, anything you see that's colored in blue are all changes that have been made since the PTR. So we've gone through, read your tons and tons of feedback, and there is just a sea of blue throughout the patch notes and the blog. Patch notes will be publishing following this stream, so go check those out and check out all the blue, because those are all the changes that you've all influenced. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so moving on to Heraldric Jewels. So the first thing, we added an entirely new Heraldric Jewel. It's called the Will Breaker. It speaks directly.
I thought Heraldric Jewels are completely new to begin with. Or is it new? Oh, this is something new from the PTR. Okay. Okay, I get it. They had the 16 on the PTR, and there's one more now. So are there 17 now? Or is this included in the 16 and they had 15? I think it's that.
To physical damage. We heard that.
Why would you even talk about that? Just tell us what you have and what you bring to the table. And why is this? Why are we talking about the PTR? Why? You can completely cut this out.
You know, a lot of Season 9 is focused on elemental damage, which is amazing and awesome and wonderful. But we also wanted to give
Why?
physical builds some love and some tools to play around with. So the Will Breaker does specifically that. So if you want to smash people with your hammer or blow people up with, you know, bones of the necromancer or whatever, that's for you. And then secondarily, Liminal Echo, which is the cheat death jewel, will not be dropping in hardcore. We heard a lot of feedback from the hardcore community that it maybe went against the philosophy and the spirit of hardcore. So we really wanted to respect that.
But
And
why?
this is
What
also an
does it
ongoing
do?
conversation about like what is the spirit of hardcore. So please keep giving us feedback about that.
The spirit of hardcore is not dying. That's it. What do you mean with the spirit of hardcore? It's not dying. If something drops that, if you use it, you have a higher likelihood to die because you can't handle it, then you don't use it. It's that simple. Why is this even a conversation?
It's been super helpful, and we want to hear more from you. And then finally, of course, there are also many more Heraldric Jewel changes, more miscellaneous stuff. So again, after this, go read the patch notes. And with that, I believe I'll be passing it over to Dan to talk about a myriad of changes with everything else.
Yeah, a myriad. So y'all had a lot of feedback on the Nightmare Dungeon updates. So I need
And again, the audio. In my OBS, he's peeking almost into the red, and then he's so silent that it's in the green, like quite far away from the yellow. Eh, This is incredible how bad the audio control is. How are you so incompetent? Give this guy a proper microphone and then mix the audio properly. What is this shit?
a piece of paper to read them all off. I can't keep them all in my head. So first up, let's talk about the Heraldric Strong Rooms a bit. So the Heraldric Strong Room UI was not clear enough. And so we added a new UI to the Heraldric Strong Rooms. We added extra kill count messaging and extra timer warnings. So it plays much, much tighter now.
Again, why are we even talking? Just show the things that you put actually into the game. Then you wouldn't have this, what we learned from the PTR. What is this? I mean, it's not magic. You have a PTR, you get feedback, you change things. That's what that's there for, right? Why do we have... I mean, this is from 50... This is almost a 40-minute section that we are going to watch. Yes, we're going to watch all of it. And this is completely not necessary. Because everything in here could just be not talked about, but shown in you have it written down in patch notes. You show what you are going to implement into the patch, into the league, and that's it. You don't need to this what we learned for the PTR. You don't need a discussion about that. When you why? I mean, this is not like, oh my god, we did something horrible. We are sorry. This is not this kind of video. I mean, what are they thinking?
When you enter it, you should be able to pretty much pick up what's going on. Now, we're not going to tell you how to get those high scores, but the fact that you should be getting a high score should be pretty apparent now. Pillars didn't feel great. You had to stand in one spot for a long time in order to get the bonus. So, we've made the pillars faster to complete, made the radius a bit larger, and now all 4 pillars will also be available at the start. So you can better choose what your path through the Heraldric Strong Room is going to be. We also heard from a lot of you that the Strong Rooms really didn't support blasting well enough. And that comes in 2 flavors. It comes in challenge, and then it comes in the fact that Strong Rooms were overstaying their welcome a little bit. So we've added a pit-style death penalty. If you die, that timer is going to get knocked down, and you're going to have less room to earn. We've added additional ambushes as your attunement. We set the activity length to 100 seconds instead of 120 seconds, And also, if you should hit that max attunement, we're not going to force you to run out the timer. We're just going to spawn the boss right then and there. Now, a number of you also commented on Blood Bishop again. So we hear you. We built out a pool of bosses, mini bosses rather, that should spawn at the end of the strong room. And there's actually going to be a surprise or two in that pool as well. And then finally, there wasn't enough incentive, we thought, for you to actually complete the Nightmare Dungeon after doing the strong room. So we've added a buff. Now, if you remember from the footage, you saw the Grand Heraldric Cache. It actually had a buff symbol above it. And so opening the cache will give you that buff, and you can carry that buff through the end of your Nightmare Dungeon run and get a bonus on the rewards that you'll get there. Now, let's talk about escalating nightmares a little bit. By far, the biggest amount of feedback was, feels pretty rewarding, but way, way, way too easy. So we have gone and made it more difficult. We have scaled the difficulty by several pit tiers every floor you advance. So just naturally, things are going to get harder, and you're going to have to push a little bit more and more. We've increased the amount of health and damage for Exalted Astaroth and the Amalgam. We have made some of those existing negative affixes a bit meaner. We've also resurrected and tweaked some of the previous negative affixes that launched with the base game. And finally, I mean, really, we just did a whole audit on our negative affixes, but we created a bunch of new negative affixes as well, including some pretty fun ones, we think. So, let us know what you think.
What's the definition of fun? That's what I would ask.
Think, of course, about the difficulty of that moving forward in any of these, because again, these are permanent updates, and we want to make sure that they, really feel good. Other things real quick that we did. So we boosted the scalable rewards to match the increase in difficulty. So as things are getting more difficult, we still want to make sure that the rewards are keeping up, that we don't tip in the other direction. It was a little hard to notice the gizmo that's on the floor that allows you to jump to the next dungeon, so we just opened the portal automatically, which you saw in the footage. The escalating sigil didn't stand out enough, so it's got a beam now. It's got its own art, so that feels pretty good. And then finally, we had asked a question during the PTR. Do folks want to have to wait until Torment 1 in order to be able to do escalating nightmares? And we heard from you, and you said, no, we don't want to wait. And we agree. So we actually created a pre-Torment version of the escalating sigil. It's not as rewarding because you're not in Torment. And it won't feature the Astaroth boss fight at the end. The Astaroth boss fight, the Exalted version, has been tuned specifically for Torment. So we wanted to make sure that that was preserved. But still, you should get a good sense of escalation pre-Torment if you're lucky enough to encounter one of those as you're leveling up to 60. And that's it for the list here. Again, please keep giving us feedback. We love to hear from you, and we want to keep improving the game. So back over to you guys in Irvine.
Fantastic. Thanks for walking us through that, Dan. And yeah, I mean, it's been, we had the PTR early in June, so it's been a while since we had it, but yeah, we received such a ton of great feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, Dan, it sounds awesome. The strong rooms are punchier, the escalating nightmares are more nightmarish, and Dan made a great point too. Those are going to be permanent additions to both, excuse me, Eternal and Seasonal realms. So we do really want your feedback on that, because it is going to be an iterative and then permanent part of the game. So we do want to tweak it where possible and get those in there.
Yeah, it's super important that we get the new Nightmare Dungeon stuff and the escalating nightmares really down well. Because we want it to be a repeatable thing that you're doing pretty consistently in your experience. So when you are doing that kind of stuff fairly consistently, it needs to feel really punchy. It needs to feel really smooth. So it will be a very iterative process. We will be taking a look at more feedback coming in and probably making additional improvements to it over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan will be coming back for Q&A at the end of the stream.
Of course you would improve on the systems and on the stuff. I mean, everything else would be retarded. Of course you do that. That's what every developer should do. especially in a live service game. I mean, why is there even a need to say that?
So we will be grabbing your questions then. And I did want to call out Mac Hayes from chat when Dan was going through the Project Strong rooms, said, blast me up, Dan. So love to see that. Love to see that in chat.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, in terms of more changes coming down the pipe, probably our biggest, most substantial part of the patch notes is always the balance changes that we have coming in. So Charles Dunn, take us to the promised land. What balance changes do you have for us?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about all the class updates that we did for Season 9. And so my section, I'll be talking about some of the new stuff that came in that you may have seen on the PTR, but also talking about some of the adjustments we've made since the PTR. Some of the learnings, some of the feedback we've gotten, and how we've iterated since then. So at a high level, there's a few broader initiatives that we've done that really affect all classes in some ways that we're doing here for Season 9. The first one you probably saw a lot on the PTR was a basic skill buff. Listed about basically every basic skill in the game, and most of them were buffed rather dramatically. Some of them 2 or 3x their damage increase.
Wow.
The impetus here was that we wanted to look kind of comprehensively at the game as a whole, the wider balance, and think, are basic skills really fitting where they should in terms of their overall damage output and how they fit into builds? And really, they were just like well behind the curve.
Yeah.
The builds, the ones that you can use, you have only 5 at all, and that's not per class. Am I ripping too hard into this game?
We
I'm
want
not impressed.
them to feel much more impactful, be a bit more, feel better when you first get them, but also be easier to kind of build around as you go and build up your character. We buffed up the baseline versions of a lot of these skills, but we did take a look at some of the legendary and unique aspects that interact with them. Our goal wasn't to be like, oh, basic skill builds, kind of like we saw with Spiritborn and Barb in the past. We didn't want those to be like, oh, here, this is we're making them the new meta.
Yeah.
This is more around like rebalancing the whole game as a whole. And we started with basic skills, trying to establish a firm power budget for them. And we're going to be looking and doing these kind of passes on other categories of skills, such as core skills, ultimates, etc., in future seasons.
You have ultimates? Is this a MOBA? Why is this so complete? Why? That's my main question. Why? Why? To everything. Why? I'm absolutely not sure about this. I'm not sure what to think about this. This looks like a mess. But maybe that seems like that to me because I'm annoyed by the quality of this. This is so...
That's going to be like an area of focus for us moving forward. We're just starting here with basic skills.
Yeah, it's like a health pass really on basic skills, and we'll be taking more looks at more categories.
Right. With the from the PTR, one big thing we noticed was that Pain Gorger's Gauntlets, one of the unique items that really empowers these basic skill builds, was definitely not living up to its billing. It didn't crit or overpower whenever its damage kind of echoed out, and it's supposed to be like a multiplier on your basic skill damage, but really it fell a lot short. So
why am I not surprised? It sounds like the entire promise of Diablo 4. We're not even fight Diablo.
we've made an update so that now Pain Gorger's Gauntlets is going to be able to crit and overpower just like your basic skill damage. So that should definitely be a huge boon to those types of builds.
Yes.
Speaking of overpower, though, overpower was overpowered, and we have done some nerfs to it. For the past few seasons, overpower-based builds have been definitely dominating the top of the meta, and it was definitely crowding out builds that really couldn't utilize that, things like dot-based builds or others.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, on the PTR, we tested an 80% reduction in the additive damage calculation of overpower. Not to get too in the weeds here, but there's kind of like an additive amount of damage that's based on how much fortified life and maximum life you have built up. We've just removed that completely. We tried an 80% reduction in what it was, and we decided it's still too strong, it's still too complicated, and we just removed that portion. So now when you overpower, you're going to do up to 50% bonus damage, just like a critical strike, but that's kind of going to be the end of the calculation there.
Really?
We still anticipate, if you really want to, the biggest damage number hits are still going to be when you crit and overpower at the same time, but it's not going to be that you must overpower or else nothing else matters.
Right.
It's just going to be in that same kind of bucket as.
Then why have it to begin with? Just make crits. Then just make a thing where crits do more damage. I mean that. Oh. Why overcomplicate things?
As critical strikes.
Yeah, there's a certain point where something becomes so powerful that occurs, where it's like, if you didn't do that, then nothing else matters. And that
Right.
starts to kind of erode the whole game experience.
Yes. And finally, we did a pass on all the key passives in the game. Much like the basic skill kind of audit that we did, we looked at all the key passives and really wanted to look at some of the ones that were like outliers. They caused some of our builds that were 10, 100x stronger than other builds. A lot of times that came down to key passives that were scaling or interacting in ways that gave you far more benefit than some other key passives on other classes. And so some of those ones that had kind of that uncapped scaling, we added in caps to make sure that they don't get completely out of control. And ones that were like definitely underperforming, we did some rather substantial buffs to them to help bring them up to kind of parity across the board. So definitely I'll be touched on that a little bit later as we get into individual classes. So let's get on to the individual classes, starting with Barbarian. So our goals for Barbarian this season is definitely a meta refresh on exactly the Barbarian meta. For the past few seasons, we've seen a lot of Earthquakes, a lot of Dust Devils, a lot of the summons being really dominant. And those are cool, but a lot of the Barbarian's core fantasy is around hitting people with weapons. And so we decided, okay, we need to do some nerfs to Earthquakes and some of those other effects that aren't quite as physical, hitting with weapons, and buff up things like Whirlwind and Hammer of the Ancients that are.
Why? Why did you need to nerf these things? Why? Were they doing so much damage that they are breaking the game? Because then I can see nerfing them, but everything else, no? So why? Give us a reason.
A lot more core to Barbarians, base fantasy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and here's my problem. It's a base fantasy. What are you even talking about? Makes no sense to me. Why nerf something if it's not broken?
With that in mind, we also got the new unique item, the Hooves of the Mountain God. Let's take a look at that here. This is the new unique boots item that...
Look how this is presented. This is dark mush on dark mush. Why does everything Diablo 4 needs to look so ugly?
is going to allow your basic skills, which I just talked about, to cleave. So once you hit maximum fury, you're going to start rapidly draining that fury, and while you're in kind of this draining state, your basic skills are going to cleave and do massively increased damage. And luckily, you're spamming out your basic skills. That is going to restore your fury and is allow you to keep in this state as long as you stay in combat and stay fighting enemies.
Yeah, and what I really love about this specific unique is that typically you try to solve your resource in a build, but with this, you try to stack as much of it as possible, so you can stay in the mountain god state or whatever you want to call it as long as possible.
Yeah, and you got to stay in combat. You got to stay hitting people with your basic skills to keep it going. It's really quite powerful, and I think it'll really enable some of those basic skill builds that we were talking about, especially with the updated Pain Gorgeous gauntlets.
Yes.
We've got a clip of this in action. Barb walks up to a big old pack
Wait,
of
what?
Gorgeous gauntlet.
800 item power, 64 armor. To me, as a PoE player, this looks like nothing. And why is the item power? What does that mean? I don't know. It looks like
Yes.
We've got a clip of this in action. Barb walks up to a big old pack of skeletons, hits them with bash. Good old bash skill cleaving through the hordes and throwing them against the side of the canyon here.
Okay.
Yes, very good. A new unique to enable basic skill builds. Not just bash, all of the basic skills will cleave with this.
I want to like the animations and what it is, but I don't. And I don't know why. Is it because I don't like Diablo 4?
So, find out which one works best for you.
Yeah, Frenzy. Can I hear any Frenzy enjoyers?
But I also just don't like how this looks. Like graphically, this doesn't look nice.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's move on to Druid here. So the Druid updates this season were mainly focused around Pulverize as a kind of a main skill that we wanted to look at. I'll get more into that as we talk about the Rotting Lightbringer in a moment, the new unique that talks with Pulverize. But ever since the PTR, we also realized that it was still underperforming baseline, so we've done some buffs to Pulverize just its raw damage output, as well as refactored some of the upgrades on it just to move around that to better work with the build with Rotting Lightbringer. But it wasn't just that. We also did a variety of other buffs on Druid. We know that Druid has historically, for the past handful of seasons, been probably the worst class in the game, certainly in terms of like representation, how many people are playing it, how late into the end game, how strong they're getting. It's definitely fallen behind the pack.
Yes.
And so with that,
Well, that was the case when the game came out too. The Druid didn't do anything. Like at all. And it seems like it hasn't changed since release 2 years ago. What is going on in that studio?
mind, we've done buffs to a wide variety of the Druid builds. I can't just say any particular buff. It's a handful of legendaries and uniques and skills that got buffed up just to bring the whole class up a little bit. So let's.
Why didn't you buff the damage of the abilities? That would be the easiest buff for them. I mean, now you need to have uniques to have the what? No, just make the abilities that the class has stronger, and then go from there. What is this?
Let's take a look at that Rotting Lightbringer, that new unique. We did see this on the PTR, but it has been rather substantially reworked since then. We heard a lot of feedback that it wasn't quite as usable, it wasn't as good as it could be. So the new version of Rotting Lightbringer says that if no puddle is around you, then Pulverize is going to form a puddle of...
A puddle. If no puddle is around you, Pulverize forms a puddle that guarantees its own overpowers. Oh, Jesus.
Poison that guarantees its own overpower and deals a massive amount of its normal damage as poisoning over time.
Yeah, this is really excellent because you can just go around and just make a bunch.
Yes, it is no longer tied. It used to have like a 10-second cooldown, which felt really bad, where you would try to Pulverize and you're like, oh, the cooldown's not up, and then you move to the next pack and it doesn't work. It was very, it didn't work as well as you had hoped.
Yeah.
So with this new update, it should definitely work quite a bit better.
Am I the only one that's being bored? This presentation is so boring. It's unbelievable.
And every time you do Pulverize, all of the puddles around you are going to splash some of their damage, because what's better than splashing poison all around?
By the way, that audio problem here, that's not on my side. That's their side.
Let's take a look at this new version of Rotting Lightbringer in action. So you run up, you form a puddle, you move off to the side, you make a second puddle, you can form more than just two, and every time that you Pulverize, all of your existing puddles are going to do that little splash of AoE around them and pulse some more damage.
Yeah, so when you're in a room with just a ton of monsters, or like a strong room for...
Why do the textures look like low res? Or is it only me that thinks that?
For example,
Yeah.
you can just go around and make a bunch and have some fun in the sun. Or not the sun, because I guess you're in the dark dungeon.
Yeah, it is a
The
nightmare
sun
dungeon.
and the poison comes with you.
Yeah, oh, how nice. Wonderful.
Okay, let's move on to the Necromancer here. The Necromancer, similar to Druid, had a variety of buffs, specifically to Golem builds, Bone builds, and Shadow builds. Some of these builds were definitely falling behind the rest of the pack on Necromancer and compared to other classes in the game.
Yeah,
So
I can
we've
see
done
that.
a handful of buffs to those builds since the PTR to bring them up and really help to make them a bit more competitive. Two of the outliers on Necromancer from last season were Soul Rift and Bloodwave, two of their ultimate skills that just where Soul Rift in particular just did way too much for any one skill. Obviously it dealt damage, but then it gave you a barrier, it gave you resource, it gave you damage, increased all of your other damage output. Refill
You have abilities that only create, that you use only to create resources for other skills to use. Oh, I forgot all about that stuff. Oh, it's so dumb.
your potions and feared enemies. So that's a lot of things for one skill to do. And we love ultimates doing a lot, but that was kind of one thing too many.
Yeah.
So on this season, we've removed the barrier generation from Soul Rift, and so if you want to get really tanky as a necromancer, you're going to have to look for some alternate sources to make yourself a little tankier, alternate barrier sources as well.
Yeah, we want to give you all the tools you need to solve your problems, but we don't want you to solve all your problems through one of your tools.
Right. Yeah, Soul Rift
Okay,
was just
yeah,
doing a little bit.
That's an approach I can understand. I can understand that, yes.
Bit too much for that, and that's why it was kind of so dominant, so popular.
Yeah.
Blood Wave, another ultimate skill as well. That just did a ton of damage. Its damage output was exceptionally high.
Yes.
I think part of that was due to the overpower being so overpowered, and so some of the nerfs there would probably bring that down to size. So we expect Blood Wave to hopefully not be the absolute dominant way of playing Necromancer, and we hope that some of those other builds like Golem, Bone, and Shadow have a few other ways of playing. We've also got the new unique, the Hand of Naz. This is a pretty cool new way of playing the class, specifically Minion Necromancer. Let's take a look. So the Hand of Naz gives you more skeleton mages. So if you go all in on your mages, you sacrifice your warriors, you sacrifice your golems, you can now summon additional mages for each minion that you sacrificed. So you can have far more mages than before.
Yes.
And just like any good RPG, your skeleton mages can get experience and level up.
Yeah,
so they
that's
attack
nice.
25 times, then they get to level up to a skeleton archmage. And when they're in the archmage form, they are harder to kill. They're going to teleport around to safety if they get attacked, and their attacks are going to occasionally shatter and deal bonus damage to.
I like that. I actually like that. The first thing here, no, the second thing here that I liked. This is nice. I wish Path of Exile had that. You hear me, GGG? I wish you had this.
To the target and nearby enemies. We can take a look at this in action. You've got your big old back line of a ton of mages. You won't have your skeleton warriors. You won't have your golem if you really want to maximize your mages. So that really puts you, the necromancer, as kind of being the front line for your army of minions. Kind of turns the traditional minion necro on its head a bit, whereas your minions are often the front line for you, and then you pump out the damage. In this kind of build, you're going to be the front lines trying to keep the enemies off your mages while they pump out the DPS from the back line.
Yeah, really, this makes it so you have a college of mages, one could say. And mages aren't the greatest at tanking, so you got to figure that out yourself.
All right, we've got the Rogue up next. So the Rogue, we did some updates to Death Trap and Shadow Clone in this season. So much like Necromancer, where they had a couple of ultimate skills that were really dominant in the meta, specifically Death Trap and Shadow Clone on the Rogue. Death Trap was kind of like Soul Rift in a lot of ways, where it did a little bit too much of everything, did pull in, did damage, other damage increases. And the big problem with that from a balance standpoint was that it was very easy to be able to just hold down the Death Trap button and spam cast it.
Yeah.
That was due to a number of
As a PoE player, how's that a problem? I do that all the time, and that's fine.
effects interacting to give you cooldown reduction on it and reset its cooldown, including whenever you overpowered or killed an enemy with it. It would help tick off some of that cooldown reduction. We've removed that functionality, so it's a little bit harder to get to that full zero cooldown death trap. If you are still really building your character out, you'll still be able to get there. It'll just be a little bit harder of a journey, similar to the philosophy on Soul Rift. We want you to be able to solve these problems, but it was a little too easy to do it on Death Trap and really short-circuited the progression cycle of building up your character and feeling that growth and that strength. Shadow Clone was doing a ton of damage, much like Blood Wave, and it kind of went a little bit against the fantasy of...
What is the problem with people having fucking fun? Why do you need to nerf everything? That seems to be fun. What is the problem? It's the same problem with the team that works on WoW. They seem to be allergic to fun. Everyone at Blizzard. That's why. Stop it. Just that. Just that people have fun. How about buffing the other things? You know, oh, these things are too strong. How about the other things are too weak? Buff them. Make the game fun by buffing the weak shit.
You know, your Shadow Clone should be augmenting your strength, and it should be kind of mirroring your damage output. What, in reality, based on what it was doing, was like you did a little bit of damage, and the Shadow Clone dealt a ton of damage.
Yeah, it felt more like you were the Shadow Clone.
Yes, it did feel like that. Shadow Clone mimics your effects, but it also changes some of the skill tags that it works with. So Shadow Clone is an ultimate skill. It is a cutthroat skill. So no matter what it's casting, that skill is an ultimate and cutthroat skill. It basically allowed it to access some extra multipliers, some extra bonuses. Baseline, there is a kind of damage penalty on the Shadow Clone, and we've kind of increased that so it doesn't deal quite as much percentage damage, but is still a good modifier to your damage output. And we've also added some damage reduction component to it. So the Shadow Clone kind of takes some of the hits for you, right? Takes some of your damage and gives you that damage reduction instead. We talked about key passive earlier. Victimize is a key passive on Rogue that while we have reworked, it was one of those ones that was either like super weak or super strong, depending on the precise tuning. And it really was struggled to get that into to balance it well against other options. Right. And so we've done a rework here where it's damaging vulnerable enemies is going to cause them to do a burst of damage, but then you also deal multiplicative increased damage to those targets after you burst, you trigger that victimize effect on them. And we think this will get it to a much healthier state where it's like more consistently useful rather than all or nothing. And the new unique for Rogue this season is the Death Mask of Nirmatrek. And this one works with your flurry builds. Let's take a look here.
Wait, are all uniques in Diablo 4 bound to a specific class? Is that how this goes? Because I mean, it's Diablo 4. I really have to not compare too hard to Path of Exile. Diablo 4 has not a lot of freedom. I have to internalize that.
So the Death Mask, you can now overexert yourself while casting Flurry. And what does that mean? That is a new term to Diablo 4. It means that if you don't have enough energy, you're going to spend life instead to cast your Flurry. And when you do spend life to cast Flurry, it's going to increase its damage and your attack speed rather substantially for a period of time. So you do get to go real fast, attack real quick, but be warned, the faster you attack without any energy, the more life you're spending, the closer to death you're going to get.
It's called...
And that's where Life Leech comes into play. I mean, or is there no Life Leech? I don't know, but I hope there is.
The Death Mask for a reason.
Right, we've got a clip of this in action. So you are running through, you are dashing to enemies around, and casting Flurry super fast, even when you are out of energy, and now your life total is going to start draining the more flurries you cast.
I never get tired of this clip. It's perfect.
It's so ludicrous.
It is a great clip. Really embodies that like fast, stabby, frantic style that rogues are known for.
Yeah.
And definitely, I love how this like turns your build crafting options on its head. Typically, you want to get, oh, give me tons of resource generation. But you don't necessarily want that here, right? You want to be on low resource so that you can trigger the spending life. Because this effect basically does nothing if you're not spending life. And for all those hardcore players out there, be very warned.
For me, this is like, meh, yeah, whatever. This is, yeah, who cares? That's what this looks like to me. Like who cares? Who cares?
This one, it won't actually kill you, but it can bring you down to about 8% life, at which point pretty much anything else will kill you.
It will certainly help you die, that's for sure.
Aislinn, you were talking about running this on hardcore for next season, right?
I was. I might be a little crazy.
All right, let's move on to the Sorceress. So the Sorceress, we've got updates here to Lightning Spear, was one of the big ones. Lightning Spear had been kind of dominating the Sorceress meta for quite a while.
And now they nerf it.
It was like really the premier build for a long time. And this had a really interesting situation where out of the box, Lightning Spear was kind of terrible, right?
Yeah.
You look at this skill and you're like, okay, how much damage does it do? How many enemies does it hit? What's its cooldown? And you're like, oh, this is awful. Like, it doesn't do anything. And then you get Splintering Energy, the legendary aspect, and suddenly it goes from nothing to best skill in the game.
Yeah, and we don't want skills out of the box to feel useless. We want them to feel powerful and good. And we also don't want...
Wait, did they buff it? Did they buff it? Oh, let me guess. They buffed the early stages, but they nerfed the late stage.
aspects to have to carry that much weight on their shoulders. It's not good for either the base skill or the aspect.
So in this season, we've buffed up the base values of Lightning Spear rather substantially. I think it was like a 4 or 5 times increased damage. But we've looked at the Splintering Energy legendary and brought that down rather substantially.
Told you so.
To be clear here, our goal is still that Lightning Spear, we do not want it to be the best way of playing Sorceress. It has had its time in the sun for a few seasons now. It's really been, I think it's time for some other options to rise up and be like some of the stronger builds on Sorceress. We still want it to be a viable way to play. We don't want to completely kill it to nothing, but it shouldn't be the absolute dominant or strongest way to play here Sorceress moving forward. To that point, we've updated Icefall and Firestarter. Icefall is a legendary Paragon node that works with your Frost skills. Those cold skills are going to do quite a bit more damage with this. So just some numerical buffs there. And the
Well, I hope you buff the sorcerer a little bit after nerfing her. I mean, the
Firestarter, that's a legendary aspect that works with your flame skills. You know, the other 2 builds outside of Lightning on Sorceress. Firestarter previously just did kind of a chunk of moderate fire damage, but wasn't anything special. Now it also gives you multiplicative fire damage, which is really good if you are picking, say, the Fire Infusion Catalyst for your Heraldic Spellcraft.
Oh, true. Or some crazy new unique that might be making its way into
Yeah, a crazy unique like the Ophidian Iris.
Oh, whoa.
Let's take a look at the Ophidian Iris. This is the new unique amulet that works with your Hydra skill. It makes Hydra into a core skill, and it's always going to summon a 3-headed Hydra, and those Hydra's attacks explode on impact. Now, previously, you could...
that sounds nice. But what... can you modify that? I guess not.
build up effects that gave you more heads to your Hydra, and for every head above 3 that your Hydra would have had, instead it grows in size and deals multiplicatively more damage.
That sounds good. I like it.
We tested this out on the PTR, and one of the big points of feedback was that there's kind of 2 ways of building Hydra. You can build with more crit focus, like crit and fire, or more burning damage focus.
Yeah.
And previously, the affixes on the Ophidian Iris really tried to force you into the critical strike version of the build, and we've updated them.
Why does it have attack speed and not cast speed? Or does the game not have cast speed and it's all attack speed? I would hope it's the latter.
Here, so we removed that critical strike chance and added attack speed, which is good for both, and changed the ranks of the passive over to Primordial Binding, which is once again good for both, rather than giving you the critical strike pyromancy effect. Just being a bit more generic and allow you to play it whichever way you like and kind of equally support it. Let's take a look at this clip of the before and after in this terms of size. So on the left, you got your little piddly, normal-sized Hydra. If you build up a whole bunch of bonus Hydra heads, you get the big boy Hydras on the right, whose attacks explode on impact. Obviously, they deal a ton more damage. They kill the enemies much faster. And it just looks a lot bigger and a lot more visually impressive.
They are...
Yeah, I agree. This looks cool. This looks cool. So, the third positive thing that came up in about an hour of watching this. I don't think that is a good quota.
Absolute units.
They really are. You get to become a Hydra parent. And also, honestly, I've never felt bad for a Khazra test dummy before, but I feel kind of bad for this guy.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to playing with this one
Yes.
on next season.
Yeah, this will be. This is exactly what I'll be running for season 9, Charles.
That's sweet. All right, let's move on to the final class, Spiritborn. So for Spiritborn this season, we've looked at updating the Razor Wings build. That's a build that has
Spiritborn. Why did I never heard about them? Is that a class? Looks like it.
had some support, but never really quite got there. We've made some adjustments to some of the legendaries and that affect that build.
Oh, that's a new class from the add-on. Right. Okay, I get it.
To really help bring it up and make it a bit more robustly supported. I want to talk a little bit about the Hunter. That's the Jaguar ultimate skill. We tested a change on the PTR where we, so currently on Season 8, and ever since it's launched, it had this mechanic where if you kill an enemy while the Hunter is active, it has a chance to reset its cooldown completely. So if you get lucky and you get a lot of kills, you can kind of spam cast Hunter until you, until you miss, basically.
Right.
We tested out a change on the PTR where instead of doing that, it would just give a more consistent amount of cooldown reduction.
Again, why are we even talking about what happened on a PTR? And why are you explaining this in such detail? Why can't you just... We changed Hunter, and it didn't work out, so we took the changes back. There, done.
And this was, we heard loud and clear that that is not fun. It was really not what you wanted. Players really liked that kind of feast or famine version of Hunter, where it had that gameplay texture of constantly resetting and that mini game of making sure you maximize the number of kills for the short duration that it's active.
Yeah, it had really it evolved into like a core part of the spirit of the Jaguar, and we don't want to have to take that away.
Right. So this is one of the great things about testing these types of changes on PTR is that we're allowed to make these bit like more dramatic changes, and then if they don't work out, we'll revert them. And so in this case, we decided to revert those changes back to what it was before. Now, for context, the reason we tried to do that change in the first place was that the Hunter was by far the most popular ultimate skill on Spiritborn. I think something like 90+% of Spiritborn players were using the Hunter. And that's not really healthy for build diversity. And we thought, okay, if we adjust its cooldown mechanic, that will be...
Why wouldn't you buff the other skills? Wouldn't that solve the problem? But why is nerfing always the goal and not buffing?
what we need to change. So instead, we looked at some...
I mean, if something is completely broken, yes, of course you can nerf this, but this doesn't seem to be broken. Just buff the other stuff.
Numerical adjustments to it, so it doesn't have quite as many bonuses whenever it does function, but it still functions the same as before.
Yeah.
And in order to promote a bit more diversity, we've buffed up the other ultimate skill options. The other 3 Spirit Guardians now will give you other ways of giving multiplicative damage whenever you have them active. The Devourer will give you multiplicative poison damage. The Gorilla Ultimate, the Protector, will give you bonus damage while you stand in his area that he's pounding down on, gives you that area of power. And the Seeker, the Eagle Ultimate, will give you guaranteed critical strikes while it's active.
Awesome.
And finally, we've got the new unique item, a Balazan's Max Latel. We've got, I've been working on that pronunciation.
Nice.
So good.
Been working on that one. Nailed it. All right, so Balazan's Max Latel. We've got, let's take a look at that. This is the new Pants unique. It triggers when you attack enemies who are close, it'll trigger your Thorns damage as poisoning damage. So it's like poison and Thorns combination here. And every time that you've retaliated with Thorns, so you've gotten hit recently, then that poisoning damage is going to increase.
I really love this unique because it speaks to the spirit of Thorns, which is like, I must be hit and then I retaliate.
Right.
But like expands on that, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it gives you more consistent value. Like if you're not getting hit, your Thorns was worthless. Now you building up Thorns is still positive offensive value, even if you're not getting hit. But of course, getting hit and triggering those thorns is going to get you even stronger. On the PTR, this was definitely very powerful.
Very powerful.
Very, very strong. We did adjust its numbers down quite substantially. The percentage of thorns converted has been reduced. We still expect this to be a very powerful build, but it's gotten brought down a notch or two because it was by far the most powerful build that we saw on the PTR.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a clip of this in action here. Right, so you're standing in the middle, you're getting hit, you're clicking your defensive skills so that you can survive, and then once you get hit and stack that up, you can go around and apply bonus poisoning thorns damage to all of the enemies around you.
Those idiots. Why are they even hitting you?
I don't know. All right, and so that covers all of the class updates. Once again, make sure you check out the patch notes after the live stream here. Check out the blog. It's got all of the details. I kind of glossed over some of them because there's so many
We
details.
aren't done yet.
Go and check those out
There's still 28 minutes left.
for all of the very specific changes that were
Oh,
made
system
from Season 9,
updates.
and can't wait for you to see to try out all of these new effects.
Woo! Thank
Why the hell was class balance update? Oh, this wasn't PTR, this was class balance update. Okay. But why did that take so long? There was basically nothing in here, but we nerfed a lot of things, we buffed some things. That's all that was in here. Why did that take almost half an hour? Why? Jesus Christ. These buffs and nerfs should have been a 4-minute video? Maybe?
Charles. Take a bow. Yeah, the patch notes are absolutely
I guess because they rambled so much. That might be it.
massive this season. They won't be hitting in all languages following the stream. We're looking to have those published just prior to the start of the season on July 1st. So some languages will be available, but expect most of them towards the start of the season because the patch notes are absolutely massive. So like Charles said, dive into them, get those changes. And Charles, can we get that Spiritborn unique name one more time?
Balazan's Max Latel.
Balazan's Max Latel. Heard it here first. The man's a pro. The man's a pro. So as we've gone through the stream, we've got all these great components from Season 9 coming through. We've got the Project Strong Rooms, we've got Escalating Nightmares, we have all these excellent balance changes and class updates coming in. So it feels like we've got this nice cake, and we just need a little bit of frosting and some sprinkles just to finish it off. So I know, Aislinn, you've got some nice little tidbits to get into towards the end in terms of system updates. So what can we look forward to in Season 9?
Yeah, so
Is there
not
anything
only
good
have we done
coming?
all these awesome, specific Season 9 things, we've also done our best to improve the game eternally or in an evergreen fashion or permanently, however you want.
Reputation? Are you stupid? Why do you even have reputation in a game in the first place? Oh my god. People will hate this. Reputation farming? No one liked it in the base game. Why are you putting it in the season? This is so stupid. Stop the stupidity.
I'm gonna say it. So yeah, a big thing that we learned from Season 8 is that we really like it when we feel like we have different ways we can play the season. So in Season 8 specifically, you went into the Apparition Incursions, and it sometimes ended up feeling while you were leveling like you had to do it a bit more than you actually wanted to. Like you'd rather go do some other things. And so the way we want to change that in Season 9 and going forward forever is elites and bosses are now going to grant seasonal reputation regardless of what the season is. It doesn't matter what the season theme is, you can always make progress towards reputation by killing those strong enemies.
Why? Just stop it. If people don't want to... You are trying to force people to do these bosses and elites. For what reason? Reputation farming? Why? Give them more loot or new loot or something like that. But well, you are the opposition of fun.
That should make it so you know, it doesn't matter if you're going to the seasonal activity, you're still going to make progress. The seasonal activity or whatever exists in a season will still be a really fantastic source of that specific seasonal power and rep and currency and what
It
have
won't.
you. But we want you to feel like you can just take some detours and explore the game at your own pace and in your own way, and the season still recognizes that.
Well,
And
you,
similarly,
you very obviously doesn't want that. You don't. That's why you have the reputation linked to bosses and allies. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that.
we had layer hordes grant seasonal currency in Season 8 specifically because it was the season of bosses, but we decided to just keep that going forward because basically all roads lead to layer bosses now. Like, you're going to find layer keys by doing a variety of activities. And so it felt like a very ubiquitous place for us to imbue seasonal currency into the game as well. And this isn't to say, like, this isn't an exhaustive list, right? Oh, I got to wave over here. This isn't an exhaustive list. You are still going to be earning extra seasonal reputation and seasonal currency from doing seasonal specific stuff too. So it should just be a much larger pool of ways to play. But yeah, so with that said, let's jump into some of the permanent details or permanent changes and details of the Nightmare Dungeon and Escalation Nightmare systems. So Dan already went over this quite a bit, but I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the why and the how of this all. So we added a bunch of new affixes, positive affixes to Nightmare Dungeons. And the reason why we wanted to do this is because we wanted to make sure that when you're sifting through your different Nightmare Dungeons, it feels like you have different options for how you can make progress for your economy. So you'll notice that these blue affixes, like the Heraldric Materials Reserve, Gem Reserve, Gold Reserve, they're pretty self-explanatory. If you go into those dungeons, you are going to get more materials from the chests that appear, or more gems, or more gold. And there's quite a few of these different positive affixes. And the big impetus behind this is we really wanted you to be able to sift through your Nightmare Dungeons, find the gap in what you're currently looking for. Like, for example, if you want to craft a Heraldric Jewel and you need gem fragments, go find the Heraldric Gem Reserve Nightmare Dungeons and run a bunch of them. And so hopefully this is like a tool that you guys can utilize and really patch up those problems. And secondarily, we also know that if players are going to be going into Nightmare Dungeons much more frequently going forward, that there should probably be a lot of replayability and variety in the negative affix experience too, so it kind of feels a little different and cool. So we really took our time. We kind of rebranded, rethemed a bunch of the affixes. We added a bunch of new ones, like Dark Omen is specifically an entirely new one. So be careful going into one of those dungeons. And we also added many more of the potential.
This is more whatever. I mean, this is not really that interesting.
Elite affix. The elite affixes that can appear on Nightmare Dungeons, like, for example, Waller, Vampiric is another one. And this is all just, again, to make Nightmare Dungeons feel like there's more variety as you're playing through all of them. Awesome. So yeah, I think we can go forward here and check out what a actual Heraldric Reserve looks like. Just as a PSA, so if you go in and you're chomping through a Nightmare Dungeon, that's what a Heraldric Reserve will look like. So there will be a bunch of those throughout a Nightmare Dungeon.
Why are they showing a screenshot that doesn't tell us anything instead of a video? I mean, I don't know what I'm looking at. And it all is green. Of course, everything is green. The color palette of this game is trash.
Make sure to open all those to get your nifty new positive affix rewards. And then on top of that, of course, we have the new permanent addition, the escalating sigils, which are just Nightmare Dungeons, but even punchier. So as Dan was saying, we made it so you're getting even more rewards from these things as you're escalating. They're going to raise in difficulty as you go through each escalation, which I would like to point out does mean that you can surpass Torment 4 with these now, which can get.
What are we looking at? We have a reddish circle that looks washed out, and everything else, it's gray greenish stuff. This looks like mud. Mud with a drop of blood in it. This looks horrible. This looks just bad.
Very terrifying. And there's also unique affixes that can only appear on escalating sigils. And here we have the actual Astaroth affix, or rather the Astaroth list of affixes that we're going to be dealing with when we fight Astaroth. So Dan kind of alluded to this, but we can see that one of the negative affixes here is Meteor Storm. That's an Astaroth-specific affix, and that actually changes the way the Astaroth fight works. And there are quite a few of these. So every time you go in and fight Astaroth, it's going to feel a little different. There's going to be different challenges you have to face. And there's also going to be a lot of really fantastic rewards that he drops too. Like, for example, the Riches of Keys gives you, I think, like Infernal Compasses and Undercity Tributes. And Lord Zier's Offering gives you quite a few keys to go and fight Lord Zier. And, you know, it's all modular, it's all randomized, and it's a lot. It's a lot of rewards.
Blah, 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 stuff, blah, blah, stuff, blah, blah. This is the only thing I'm hearing here. This is... yeah, whatever.
Which is great. But it's a lot harder too, which is also fun. But yeah, so that's the overall on these Nightmare Dungeon and Escalating Sigil things. And I just want to say, you know, as one last thing, like I mentioned before, this is something that we want to continuously improve upon because it is such a major new thing. And like, we knew that Nightmare Dungeons needed some love, and we're really happy we got the opportunity to do that here. And we want to continue to foster and cultivate the system going forward. So please, any more feedback you have, shoot it our way. All right, and with all that said, let's move on to some more general quality of life updates to the game as a whole. So first of all, here we have the legendary item drop updates. So typically in Diablo 4, what we've done...
Increased quality of items drops. Is it me or is that grammatically wrong? Shouldn't it be increased quality of item drops? I mean, am I wrong? I think I'm not wrong. I think that's grammatically wrong what they have on the screen now. I mean, I'm not surprised. They messed up the math for the damage calculations when the game out. So yeah.
Is when you go up in Torment tiers, you find more items, but we've decided to make it so you also find a higher quality of items when you go up in Torment tiers as well. This means that as you go from Torment 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, you are going to find more ancestral items and thus also more greater affixes. We wanted to do this because we were finding that people on higher Torment tiers, as characters were getting to 2 and 3, etc., the loot wasn't quite keeping up with the state their character was in and what they expected to receive. And so we're trying this out, and you know, let us know what you think. And I just wanted to do a quick call out that this also applies to lair bosses. Like, it applies to everything, but I wanted to specifically call out that it applies to lair bosses, which is great because now we're going to be finding more ancestral versions of lair boss unique items.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Let's move on to the resource economy. There's quite a few of these here. So first of all, we saw that people were not finding as many legendary runes as they would like. It felt too sluggish to get through that.
Why do these things look like they don't belong there? Why is that the case? That shouldn't be. That's bad visual design.
That journey. So we've kind of done quite a few changes to that overall. Now the Tribute of Harmony, which is specifically the tribute that grants quite a few runes, will grant even more and a higher quality of runes. All Undercity tributes, not just the Tribute of Harmony, will also grant runes. So if you're finding yourself light on runes, going to Undercity is typically a really good place. And then finally, we also increased the quality chance, the chance for legendary runes to drop from fighting lair bosses and their lair boss horde too. So just kind of all throughout the game, that's just a bit better. We've made quite a few improvements to Whisper caches. So like the gold cache is much more lucrative, the material cache is more lucrative, the gem caches are more lucrative. A lot of ancillary stuff just feels better and
So all catches are more lucrative. Just say that.
are better choices than they used to be. We want to make sure that when you're actually looking at the potential whisper caches, that each of them feels like it would actually make a difference. And so that's the big impetus there. We have made our jewelers across Sanctuary adopt more business-friendly practices. Their cache is no longer quite as ludicrously expensive, and it also drops significantly more rings and amulets. So they're a little bit nicer now. And then Infernal Hordes also is going to be dropping more gems. And then finally, something we wanted to add here is there's going to be increased drop rate for Scrolls of Escape, specifically in Hardcore. We found that you weren't getting quite as many as we would like you to in that mode. And so we want to make sure that you have just enough to go and test yourself against those really challenging lair boss fights when you feel like your build is ready. All right, and let's dive into into our.
Is it me or was this a nothing burger? What is this update? What is this leak?
Our next slide here. So this is just to go over, basically, this is a lot of information. So let's just talk briefly about what is permanent and what is exclusive to Season 9, just kind of as a recap. So permanent to both the Eternal and Seasonal realms, now and forever. We have the Nightmare Dungeon updates. So you are going to be finding Heraldric Strong Rooms on both the Eternal and the Seasonal realms. You're going to be able to go into escalating nightmares in both. You're going to find all these new Nightmare Dungeon
She's literally repeating what we had on the beginning of the video. What the fuck?
fixes and escalating nightmare fixes permanently in the game. And of course, all the new uniques for each class are permanent. And then exclusive to Season 9 is the quest line exploring the sins of the Herodrum. The Heraldric Spellcraft, the catalysts and the infusions and the arcana, the Heraldric Jewels, and then, of course, the seasonal reputation board and the rewards from that are exclusive to Season 9. All right, so that about wraps it up for the Evergreen updates here for Season 9. And just to kind of touch on the PTR and the learnings and kind of our...
How is this a leak? How is this a major update? This is a kind of mid-season update of bugs and stuff in Path of Exile 1 or 2. That they just throw that out. Oh, we had to fix some shit. Here's the patch notes. What is this? This is a joke. What the hell?
Our thoughts and our culture on PTR. So we already kind of went over the systems updates that were changed since PTR. I'll go over them again very briefly. So
Oh
layer
god.
bosses.
Oh, no. Please no. Oh god. Gonna use that for the thumbnail.
Now have an increased chance to drop legendary runes. There's a increased drop rate to Scrolls of Escape in Hardcore, and there was the massive pass on all things Nightmare Dungeon to improve the tuning and make affixes meaner and stuff like that. But I just wanted to take a moment to say that
I just want to take you. We have PTR learnings. We are here at 149. We had PTR learnings from 54 minutes to 1 hour 3. And now we are back there again. Just with, where is it? The system updates, this stuff that we had about here somewhere. How is this almost 2 hours, but it's about 90 minutes, and parts of it is repeating information. How? Why? What? Stop it.
The PTR for us as a team is just amazing. We really cannot stress this enough. Like, when the PTR goes live and you guys start talking about the game, the air in the office is electrifying. We're all so excited to see what you guys have to say, and we're just, you know, we're running around, we're talking to each other, we're like, oh, like, this is, did you see this? Like, maybe we should change this, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just great. It's great for the vibes. It's great for the game. And just a heartfelt thank you from us to you for helping us make Diablo as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah, we absolutely love reading all the.
Well, someone has to do the work if you aren't competent enough, because it's very clear that you aren't. Because it's, I mean, I have been looking at, you know, the mess that is Diablo 4 since it came out, or shortly before that even, and this game is a mess, and the problem is the people working on it. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone there is completely incompetent, but it's very clearly that some people there are incompetent and they are holding the rest of the team back. And I think these people have to be fired.
Feedback, watching videos that people post, or you know, posting online on social media or other places for feedback on our forums. It's really amazing to see players like trying out the new stuff and giving feedback on what's working, what's not. And then we really do listen and adjust based on that. We try to find the best ways of delivering a really high quality experience every season. And the PTR is really instrumental for us to be able to do that.
It absolutely is. And like, this season was wild for PTR updates. We made so many changes, and it was just super helpful to hear everything you guys had to say.
I mean, did you do that many changes? I mean, if what I've seen is not that spectacular. That was nothing. That's one update. That's one small update, the balance update. That's what this is. Why are you making such a fuss about it?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Like, being able to have players jump in, test the content, also gives us such a better feel for how things are going to go in season launch. So then we know we can take a confident step forward, knowing that our players who, you know, are just diehard Diablo 4 fans have given us their greatest feedback. And then when the season launches on July 1st, we now know that we already have all these problems addressed. We've got these bugs that are taken care of, and even just like, you know, in terms of like bugs or challenging, or the unique that got entirely overhauled.
Yeah.
We now have that chance to make those changes ahead of time. So yeah, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for jumping in and testing and giving us all your feedback, because we appreciate it, and it does make this game a whole lot better. So thank you for that. And that brings us closer to the end of our show. We've got some excellent Q&A lined up for you. So we're going to bring Dan back from Albany.
Excellent Q&A.
And we do have a few questions lined up. The first thing that we do want to ask our devs here is, for the Herodic Spellcraft,
not even 10 minutes.
Are those powers
maybe 10.
account bound? Are they partition bound?
What did I see? Closing thoughts and stream recap. What the fuck?
Or do you need to level them up specifically for each alt?
Yeah, so they're going to be partition bound. So on, for example, seasonal softcore, if you make a new character, you'll have all your progress from your previous seasonal softcore character. So it's partition bound. If you make a new seasonal hardcore character, you would have to find the new Herodic Spellcraft, but then any future seasonal hardcore character you make would have access to that same progression.
Good.
Awesome. Nice. Okay, we've got our first question coming in from the Sanctuary Discord. Getty asks, how does the team currently feel about boss design? Are invulnerable phases something you're looking to continue with in future bosses? And that's an interesting one because the Astaroth fight that just came back does have some interesting mechanics that aren't quite invulnerability, but it's more of like a segmented phase. So
Yeah. That's something that we've been talking about a lot internally. With the new changes to the layer bosses. I think it's something that we. Sometimes it's important, like it's cool for like the vibes of the fight if a boss has an invulnerability phase, but we also recognize that like once you get to a point where you feel like you can beat a boss, sometimes the invulnerability phase can feel like an obstacle, potentially an unwanted obstacle. And so the team has definitely been exploring some ways that we can create that similar feeling without necessarily putting a hard stop on a fight.
Yeah, there's definitely some examples even already in the game where it's like, hey, if you're able to kind of beat a DPS check and you're able to get the boss like down to a certain amount or kill it before the phase, then you're able to do that. That's definitely one good example that we're definitely looking at kind of replicating in some other boss fights.
nice. Okay, Charmed Chaos. Does the strong room time count against the dungeon's completion time, or are they separate?
Dan, you want to take that one?
I'm thinking about this right now, and I am not entirely certain.
We are at the part that I've seen in clips. Yeah, not good.
My guess is that it does count towards the dungeon completion time, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to, go back to the team and post an update online about that.
Cool. I guess it's a philosophical question of, is the strong room its own realm? Like, are you, defying the logic of where you are in the dungeon? Or, I mean, you do blast through it pretty quick, which is good. But then, you might take your time leaving it or going back.
Why is there even a timer? Why? What for? Is that good for anything? I personally don't think so.
Trying to find some more goodies. So, yeah, that's an excellent question. I've got another one from Why So Blue Panda Bear. Don't be sad, Panda Bear. At Diablo, do we still get Obdicite in these escalation nightmare dungeon runs?
Oh, yeah, you do. There's also even there is an affix that increases the amount of Obdicite you get. And again, also the escalating Nightmare dungeon runs scale. So scale with rewards, and difficulty. But as you go up and up and up, you just get more Obdicite and the affixes become better. So if you find like the extra Obdicite affix later on, it's like showering Obdicite. It's a lot.
That's unreal. That's absolutely unreal. This one's for you. Might be for Aislinn. The Bird King. Has anything been confirmed about GA or general greater affix rates going up at higher torment tiers?
Oh, yeah. So that slide we had talking about the increased quality per torment, they will be going up, yes. You're going to be finding more ancestral items, and so consequentially, you're going to be finding more greater affix items and items with more greater affixes as well.
Unreal. Thank you for that, Aislinn. Scream Hard. At Diablo, question for Q&A. Will we start to see seasonal power systems incorporated into the base game? There have been several that I was fond of that could add depth.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that.
So let me get this straight. None of the to-date seasonal systems have been implemented into the base game. Wow. This is one of the most stupid decisions I can imagine. I mean, basically this means that you create a system for a new league. The league ends and the system is gone. And you never use that ever again. Why create it in the first? Why don't you put that in the base game to have more content? I mean, that just would make sense. But I'm, of course, speaking as a Path of Exile player. So, of course I would expect that.
Obviously, every season when we make some of these powers, like the Heraldic Spellcraft or the Witchcraft powers and the boss powers in the past, they were exclusive to that season.
Yep.
That being said, we are a team with a bunch of designers who are always looking for good ideas, and especially good ideas that have proven to work in the game. And so
Basically, what he says, the systems doesn't work in the game. Kind of. I mean, I'm sure he's not saying that, but it's kind of sounds like that. If you want to be negative, and I kind of want to, because fuck this shit. So basically, what you're saying is, we don't give a fuck about people that not play seasons. We don't give a fuck about people having content to play in our game. Because all this content would still be in the new seasons too. I mean, that would just be more additional content, more loot, more things, more build variety. I mean, why am I trying to? We all know Diablo 4's shit compared to actual ARPGs.
So we definitely, when we're looking at making future systems and future improvements to the game, we are absolutely looking at some of the best performing seasonal powers and thinking about how we can integrate that into the game. So it's very likely you'll see some of the better received and more popular seasonal powers potentially return in the future. But for the time being, they do still exist just in their season, but they are absolutely still on our radar.
My friend, how many seasons did the game have? Wait, this is season 9. You're telling me not one thing out of 8 seasons have gone into the base game as content? Wow. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?
To bring back in other forms and other ways for future content.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do love, even for the season overall, instead of, having seasonal powers that we have and then look at the favorite ones, such a massive part of the mechanics of this season are just already going to be permanent and in eternal and seasonal realms, which is so nice. So
It's true.
yeah, really just those power systems are really the seasonal parts. And a lot of our focus on seasonal development is plussing up base aspects of the game, like the Nightmare Dungeon system as a whole. We're looking at making sure that part of the game is improved and is evergreen. And then a lot of the powers are things that are exclusive for the season, but we are still looking out for good designs and ways.
Does that mean you don't think that the seasonal stuff is good designs? I actually think he believes that. Because otherwise some of the seasonal stuff would be in the base game. I actually think they believe that the stuff is not good enough for the base game, so it's just seasonal. I think that's what's going on here, and I hate this attitude. Then why, if it's not good enough to be in a base game, why make it a season? Why make it a season to begin with?
Of bringing back the popular ones for the future.
hell yeah, absolutely, Charles. Mippy, at Diablo, are the escalating nightmare sigils craftable or only droppable? Important question for leveling. I think I might send that one to you, Dan.
Is it an I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's another one I'm not sure about, unfortunately.
So far the clips of this Campfire have been accurate.
So I believe they should only be able to
Yeah.
drop from the Herodric Strong Rooms. That's where you'll be finding
Yeah.
escalation sigils.
Right. And I think in
So I just to the
But the question would be, can you craft on them? That would be the question here, and that would be interesting.
point, if you want to try to be farming them, you can craft Nightmare Sigils, trying to find ones that have the Herodric Strong Room
Yes.
guaranteed on there, and then run the ones with the Strong Room. So it's a little bit, you can't maybe craft them directly, but you can craft ways of farming them.
You can definitely go out of your way to find Herodric Strong Rooms, which then brings you to Escalation Nightmares.
Yeah, and if you're looking for those pre-torment Nightmare Escalation Sigils, you're going to be getting that from the Seasonal Reputation track. So before you are pre-torment, if you want to play those and get used to them before you actually get to face off against Astaroth in post-torment levels, you will be getting.
Reputation is such a bad thing for an ARPG. It's so bad. It should be in the game.
That from the Seasonal Reputation track. So look out for those. The Creether. Cool name.
Ooh.
How do you come up with the names for your uniques? Some of them are really interesting, and some are hard to pronounce.
That's true.
Are the names coming from lore, or just, did you find something cool that ended up fitting with the names?
A lot of times they come from a lore. A lot of our uniques are handled by our wonderful narrative designers and quest designers who really have a firm grip on the lore and the world building of Sanctuary and all of the characters and factions within there. And so a lot of them do come from that. Some of them are a bit, maybe a bit more generic. I'd say like ones that maybe don't tie to a specific person, but a lot of them do, and that's handled by our wonderful narrative and quest designers.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like Death Mask of near my truck.
Near my truck,
Yeah.
Yeah. Chat was picking up also on the phonetic of "it's near my truck."
Oh, yeah, it's near my truck.
That is how we.
We've been saying
Near
that
my
a lot.
truck, yes.
leading up to this stream. Awesome. Okay.
Come on.
Oh, Draketh 90. Will you consider allowing other boss fights to be customized with affixes like Astaroth? Sounds like a cool way to keep layered bosses dynamic and fresh.
Yeah, no shit. Why isn't that a thing already? I bet they will say no, or maybe in the future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're really excited about the system with Astaroth, where he's going to feel different each time you fight him. So that's definitely something that, we are always looking to imbue more replayability into the game, because Diablo is just,
Do you? I mean, then why don't you integrate seasonal systems into the base game? You can just integrate them the way they are. I mean, I don't see problems with that.
lives and dies by like how much fun it is to go and do stuff over and over. And so that's definitely something that we can take a look at in the future, and like different mechanics to ensure that fighting layer bosses or fighting other bosses in the game feel exciting and different each time you go in and fight them. And Astaroth is a great example of that, and we're excited for you to try it out.
Unreal. And our last question comes from either Jajapur or Yayapur or Hahapur, depending on the pronunciation. This one's for you, Charles, and it's less of a question, more of a request, I think.
Okay.
When can we expect more skill-changing uniques like the new Necro one? Give us one for multiple golems with a little smiley face.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so obviously every season we are making a new unique for every class, and we really try to focus on giving brand new ways.
Wait, what? One unique for any class? Each season? I like the approach of GGG better. They just... Well, the main reason is because the uniques aren't bound to classes. They can very much enhance one class specifically, but every class can use them. Oh, class. Yeah. Yes, every class. I don't like how Blizzard does this.
Of playing, or ways to kind of revitalize existing builds. Like obviously golem builds exist, so it is absolutely valid that we could potentially see one in the future that allows you to have additional golems. I can't specifically promise that just yet, but we're working on making brand new cool stuff every season.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, that takes us to the end of the Q&A. Thank you
Does
all
it?
for your incredible questions, and thank you to the community team for sourcing those. We really appreciate all the things that you want to know about the game. So yeah, and that brings us to the end of the stream. Keep in mind, we do have patch notes dropping following the stream, so check those out for any changes. And we did have the season overview blog launch this past Tuesday. So for all the needs, all the things you want to know, you'll find it there. But also, hopefully you've claimed your sorcerer staff already. But if you want more Twitch drops, oh, actually, you know what? Before that, we sort of addressed this on the stream. Dan touched on it, but for season 9, the pet that you'll be able to earn from the season journey, claim Iris if you haven't already. But this is Dante. So if all the keen-eyed viewers,
Oh, does this look so bad? This is it's incredible to me how bad Diablo 4 looks. At least what I've seen in this stream. Why does this look so bad? Man, yeah, okay. Let's finish this here. So it was as disappointing as I thought it was from seeing the clips. This is horrible. This isn't even worth being a season. This is just some fixes.